This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. Chelsea are the best team in the world. Are Chelsea the best team in the world? Are Chelsea good now? They stunned PSG in the final of the Club World Cup. Some elite finishing from Cole Palmer and João Pedro means a second trophy for Enzo Maresca. We'll try and work out if the Club World Cup was good and how heartwarming it was to see Donald Trump getting a medal and celebrating with the team. Maybe Chelsea bought him and are going to sell him back to themselves in the ultimate PSR loophole. At exactly the same time, England waltzed past Wales at Euro 2025. It was incredibly comfortable. There is some real momentum behind the Lionesses. France's win over the Netherlands means the Lionesses are on the easy side of the draw. Oh no, not this again. Emotional scenes at Deepdale as Liverpool play their opening pre-season game and their first game since the tragic loss of Diogo Jota. Also today, Crystal Palace are demoted to the Conference League. There's secret release clause of Morgan Gibbs White. Victor Gyökeres goes on strike. All that plus your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Dan Bardell, welcome.
Hello, Max.
Out in Switzerland, Robyn Cowen, hello.
Hello, Max.
John Brewin, welcome.
Hello. I've just poured water all over myself, so that's...
Oh dear, how exciting. Yeah. To make the pod a bit more sort of scintillating, a saucy, are you going for a sort of wet T-shirt?
I was thinking about the weather at the Club World Cup, aren't you? That's it.
It's a part of the... viewers aren't going to see, let's put it that way. So it's going to be interesting down there.
Do you want a moment?
No, I'm fine.
I wouldn't want a podcast for an hour. Are you sopping wet, or are you okay to carry on?
I've had worse, and I don't really want to go into detail of when. But
fine. Barry's not here.
Taking your drinks break too early, John. You're supposed to wait 25 minutes.
Barry's not here to deflect to either today.
No, I've never done that.
No, good man. Right, let's start with the Club World Cup. We weren't sure whether we'd lead with England or the Club World Cup, and I suspect if PSG had won this like we'd expected to, we'd have led with England, and if Wales had beaten England, we'd have started with that. But it feels like the bigger story today. Ted says, does the Club World Cup feel like a real tournament now that PSG have bottled it? I mean, John, who saw this coming?
Well, can I first congratulate Donald Trump for winning the competition, for organising the competition. You know, when you saw up on the rostrum, you saw Gianni Infantino have that lonely feeling that so many people have had in the life of Donald Trump, which is he's taken all the credit for this. I did all this work and he's just stepped across me. Now he knows how Elon Musk feels. You know, Trump suddenly, I didn't realise when I was watching the footage of last night and I kept the TV running with an interview with Donald Trump about how wonderful the country is and his favourite players. And it was a really good outing for Make America Great Again, wasn't it? Oh, you're asking about the football. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, no, it's okay, because you started with that, and I think it is really fascinating. And I don't know what you think, Dan. Just that moment where if I ran football, I would be nowhere near the trophy lift, right? I wouldn't even be out there. I'd give it to a legend. You don't need to be there. But okay, Gianni's there. But even Gianni knows once you've passed the trophy, you then sidle off to the side. And the fact that Donald Trump just doesn't come with him and then is standing there clapping, basically part of the team. And then Gianni has to sort of come back, sort of hug him, sort of laugh along with him and sort of try and get him to the back, sort of out of shot. It's sort of, it's sort of, in the most basic level, hilarious when you strip it all back to, you know, the whole problem with the Club World Cup. A bit depressing, but I'm focusing on the hilarious bit for now, if I'm allowed.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of when David May was so heavily involved in the Champions League 1999 celebrations when they won the treble, to be honest, because I didn't feel he had much right to be there either. I think the highlight for me is the picture that went around the WhatsApp group this morning of Cole Palmer kind of just looking at him and thinking, why are you still here? Because Cole Palmer doesn't hide his feelings and his emotions very well usually, does he? It's written all over his face. But I think it probably, in a weird way, kind of sums up the tournament quite appropriately and quite nicely.
Yeah.
Well, nicely is probably not the right word, but yeah, I think you take my point.
Yeah, Robyn, I mean, obviously you were quite busy. You probably weren't double screening, I suspect, last night with your professional duties for England Wales. But just wonder in the sense that how annoying is it? And I asked Susie this yesterday, that these games happened at exactly the same time. You know, when even the fact that we have to debate, well, editorially, what do we lead with? What's the bigger story? Like, FIFA talk a good game about women's football, and there we are, relegating England to part 2 of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. It happens all the time. But I think there definitely is a point of the women's game is sort of relegated. But it's just the sheer volume of football now. It's kind of like there is going to be clashes everywhere. I haven't really watched any of it, to be honest, because it's just my brain's too full of women's Euros. But I watched the highlights, and it seemed like Chelsea. I mean, Cole Palmer is the story, really, isn't he? What a game! When he's on form like that, he makes everything he does look effortless. Love the way he passes the ball into the back of the net. It's just sensational. And yeah, what a weird double that Chelsea have won. Conference League, Club World Cup double. You'll never sing that. Yeah, just really weird. Just the whole thing, very strange indeed.
Yeah. Interestingly, we've had quite a lot of correspondents saying, please cover the Club World Cup properly. We've had a lot of correspondents saying, don't talk about it at all. So look, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The thing about Palmer's finishing, John, is that there are so many footballers that can make that, a pass to a teammate like that 100 times out of 100, but cannot do the same thing when it's the goal that you have to pass to. There is something psychological about it. Whether it's instinctive or the fact that, Palmer plays with that sort of total freedom, that means he doesn't there's not even a tiny part of him that freezes. And he hasn't had brilliant form all the time, but when, as Robyn says, he's on form, that ability is just something that so few players have.
Yeah, it's a coolness that sometimes even the most talented players don't have. I remember, this is going back a long time, but someone like Ryan Giggs, it was always like he's trying to burst the back of the net when he gets in front of goal. Cole Palmer does exactly the opposite. It's it's like a Barry Davis commentary. Breathe the chance. Like he takes the breath and thinks, right, it's going there. But almost, he's not, but it's instinct as well. It's all instinct with Cole Palmer. He is so off the cuff as a player. And that's the strange thing, is that he is playing in Maresca's team, which is one of the most mechanical. You can imagine the Maresca training is, remember there was those stories about Roberto De Zerbi down at Brighton, just having the players just having to do shape all day. And you imagine that is how it is, just as it is. That's how Italian managers manage. It's, the Italian education system is by rote, and that's how you learn football. And yet, Cole Palmer drifts through it like a sort of skinny Liam Gallagher, Chris Waddle, and just, decorates the games with these beautiful goals. And, the post-match interview was just this classic piece of almost like punk attitude, where he's like, and I'll use the word, I think we can. He said, people have given us a lot of shit this season, and it's, and he says what he means. He just has that attitude, and that makes him such a special footballer. It doesn't necessarily make him, as Robyn said, a consistent footballer, but on his day, and he is a guy for the big occasion. Because you remember when City sold him towards the end of that transfer window 2 or 3 years ago? I think he'd scored in the Super Cup final. He'd scored in the Community Shield, and he was just coming to the brim. Really, he was just coming to the boil. He's nerveless, and on those occasions, you need a nerveless guy. And it was so strange because PSG are the European champions, yet completely fell apart. And people like Nuno Mendes, who are supposed to be the best at their sport, just came apart. I don't know what it was. The heat. Luis Enrique, this magisterial coach that we've said, is possibly the best coach in the world. By the end of it, he's swinging a left in a post-match brawl. It got to PSG, and the reason it got to PSG is that Chelsea had a perfect game plan and had a perfect play for it in Cole Palmer.
Yeah. And also, João Pedro, it is interesting, Dan, isn't it, that someone messaged, I forgot to put it in the script, Chelsea were in this competition because they won the Champions League in 2021. Obviously, João Pedro was nowhere near this side, as most of the players weren't in 2021. He wasn't even there 2 weeks ago. He was just lying on the beach. And yet, again, what a start to his Chelsea career.
I thought, Palmer was absolutely excellent, but I thought while João Pedro was on the pitch, I actually thought he was Chelsea's best player because he somehow managed to occupy the entire PSG backline. So some of his off the ball movement and some of his pressing. I think his pressing was what actually I was most impressed with. It took me back to when Liverpool were playing their rock and roll football under Klopp, and it was Firmino, and it was the kind of birth of that front three. I honestly thought João Pedro was outstanding and topped it off with a lovely dinked finish as well. He kind of combines a little bit of Delap and a little bit of Jackson. I felt in his performance, in that he seemed to have the hustle and bustle that we expect Delap to provide, but he had that clever off the ball movement that Nicholas Jackson had. So when Chelsea signed him, I was thinking, where's he going to fit? Because obviously one of Delap or Jackson's going to play. But I actually thought he just looked like the perfect centre forward for Chelsea last night. And then Palmer, because they had an overlapping right back, could, even though he was playing on the right hand side, he could invert and become almost a right sided number 10. And Neto was holding the width on the other side, on the left flank, with Cucurella coming in and kind of inverting when he needed to, or staying back and making a back three when he needed to. And I just thought, well, that all worked. And I've not felt that with Chelsea over the last few years. And they've got that bit of stability now as well by having the same manager for the second season in a row. I'm not sure if that's something that will ever catch on. But I thought Chelsea were brilliant. We can say what we like about the tournament, but when two teams get to the final, they're giving it their best and they want to win. And Chelsea completely outclassed PSG.
Yeah, and I thought, like, when Delap came on as well, he looked dangerous as well. And, you need to have a big squad when you're going to be in the Champions League. And it is really interesting to see how good Chelsea will be. D. Osmond said, did Gareth play the wrong right back in midfield at the Euros? Rhys James is excellent. What did you make, John, of Rhys James in there?
Rhys James's return to form and prominence is quite a heartening tale, because we were hearing, weren't we, not that long ago, that was perhaps the end of him as a useful top-level player because of his problems with muscles. Let's credit Thomas Tuchel, actually, was one of the people who had a lot of faith in him. Thomas Tuchel restored him to the England setup, is a big fan of his. And there were points in the season when it felt like Maresca didn't particularly trust him, but he's revived himself. He is such a talented player who is capable of playing across the team. Is he England's Philip Lahm? Does he have that level of talent? And perhaps not the same distribution skills, but he has that game reading ability. He also is a fearsome competitor. Listen, PSG's midfield was so dominant when they won the Champions League. Vitinha, a player like that, and he just gobbled him up. I think 14, 15 months ago, I was watching Enzo Maresca lose at Bristol City as a Leicester manager. There are a lot of doubts in him as a manager. There may well still be doubts in him as a manager, but you can't say he hasn't achieved what he was meant to do. He's taken them into the Champions League. He's won the Conference League. He's won the Coppa Gianni. When we think of Chelsea managers, we think of one or two Chelsea managers, and there are other managers that have been successful. You've got your Roberto Di Matteo's. Is he in the Di Matteo camp? Is he in the Mourinho camp?
Hiddink, did he probably won?
He won the European Cup,
didn't they? With it? Yeah, there you go.
That's Chelsea.
Something,
and you have to say, this is the strange thing about Chelsea, and they just win. They win trophies when other clubs, your Manchester Uniteds and Liverpool went a long time without winning a trophy. All the way through this, since the Abramovich era, they just win stuff.
Yeah,
and it must be being a Chelsea fan. Are they at the point of being bored of winning? So I suspect not. But it's easy for them. Chelsea versus Spurs. Tottenham are, historically, a much bigger club. Chelsea fans don't like that. It's true. But if you're a Spurs fan, look at Chelsea and just think, they've won 25 trophies in the time that Tottenham have won one. And they just do it as like, well, this is what we do.
Yeah, they sort of do it in a weird way, without sort of creating a legacy. But they obviously do, but it sort of doesn't feel like that. They just, we just happen to have done this and they've done it again. I wonder where do the James family go? When they're, like Rhys is there winning the World Cup and Lauren's there, playing brilliantly again for England. Robyn, I'd like to ask you about João Neves pulling Cucurella's hair. I mean, it's It's such a good tactic to have hair that long when you're that annoying.
I was going to say more. I mean, it's brilliant. I think more people should utilise that, really, if possible, because it's so tempting, isn't it? It's just so tempting, and it's going to be a red card. And I do think that's a kind of marginal gain that more players should to take hold of. But as you've mentioned so many times previously, Max, he's also one of the most irritating players ever. So you just want to do it. So you almost need the hair, but also the personality of Cucurella.
I think that's the fourth per time that's happened. I was looking at this.
Really?
We're running the stats on the Cucurella hair. And
expected hair pull.
Because it was the Christian Romero was the famous one. Jack Stevens...
That went unpunished, I think, didn't it? Was that... Yeah.
Jack Stevens was actually sent off for it. David Brooks, a game I was at, actually... VAR attempted to send him off, and we had a 10-minute delay while they ran back footage of hair being pulled, or was it? And this was a clear and obvious hair pull, wasn't it?
If you're getting David Brooks that angry, like, that is something, isn't it? Like, but you know, like, but if he's your player, like, he'd made an amazing block at 0-0, actually, I think it was, where he really read. I think Doué tried to square it, and
he's had a great season, actually, hasn't
Brilliant
he?
Season.
Generally,
yeah, totally. And Robert Sanchez actually made a few really good saves. We've been pretty critical of him. Lots of people have. He actually played really well in this game. There was a lovely moment where he was hugging.
Oh, did you notice the fact that the 4 or 5, I'm not sure, I lost count, but Chelsea goalies had this big hug together?
Yeah, I thought it was really nice. I thought it was really lovely. Like, what a group to be in, isn't it? Maybe they live together. Maybe they just all hang out together. It's lovely. What did we make of down of the opening ceremony? Sort of bejeweled FIFA lettering on the pitch. Loads of breaks. Trump and Gianni standing there for the national anthem, and the Robbie Williams performing the official FIFA anthem. And then, Michael Buffer. And then you have, in the crowd, Spike Lee, the former emir of Qatar, Hamad Bil Khalifa Al Thani, and Rita Ora. Like, it's sort of it's like a fever dream in a way. And then a 24-minute half time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it might be classed as being a little bit much. I would think all those people that you've just named. The halftime show baffled me.
That sounded so good in Brummie. In Brummie, that was perfect.
It was the halftime show that baffled me. I couldn't understand what was going on when I walked back downstairs. I didn't really know who half the people were. I did have to make inquiries with my family as to who was who. Doja Cat. Is that right? I thought it was.
Well, Chris Martin was there. Yeah. I'm aware of his work, of course. Yeah. J Balvin, it sounds like someone who could have played, 300 times for Aldershot. Doja Cat and Thames, all on an enormous high-tech stage that was built above the arena, so it didn't upset the turf. It took 6 semi-trucks to deliver all the required material, including 40,000 pounds of gear, scenery, and structural trusses.
I thought Doja Cat was a bit insensitive to wear a Crystal Palace shirt after the recent news as well. I thought that was a little bit out of order. Yeah, just a bit more. I started to think, is this even real? Is it AI? Am I going mad? I couldn't work out what was going on, but I'm not sure. Would you say it was 24 minutes? Because it felt like it was 24. It felt like it was 45. Yeah. So we're having like 3 45-minute parts of a game now.
I mean, I guess, Robin, we are always in danger of being, I was going to say old men yelling at clouds, but old women as well, old people yelling at clouds when we sort of say this isn't what football is. But, football is 15 minutes half time. You're either taking penalties against the mascot, or you're trying to kick the ball in from the halfway line, and you're trying to chip the ball into like a giant washing machine or something. That's
into a
what
skip,
we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, game's gone. I mean, yeah, you're right. You kind of really try not to kind of keep a bit of an open mind. I think it was just in keeping with the competition, I guess.
Yeah.
It's in America. It's been a bit weird that this whole sort of announcing the players as they come in. I guess it's kind of the vibe, isn't it? I don't think we're going to see that at Bramall Lane. Sort of people going, who's that then?
You say that, but back in the 90s, I attended a Sheffield United game against Ipswich, and Def Leppard came on and did a bit of a promo. So
did they?
Yeah.
Oh,
when love and hate collide, I remember the record. Yeah. So there you go. The funny thing you used to say, and I thought you were a big fan of these actually, Max, he said it's Chris Martin. I think the whole of Coldplay were actually on there.
Oh, were they? Were they?
You see, because no one actually knows who the... Like, being a member of Coldplay...
Who are the others?
Who isn't Chris Martin.
Look, I could ask Mrs. Rushden. I could go in there and she would know instantly. I believe one of them's called Will Champion. I don't know the other ones.
No, I don't know who they are. But that's...
You're right, though, John. That's the absolute dream. You don't get recognised, but you're loaded.
No, you just... Good, and I think they do actually share... quite a lot of the money out, so it's all good. It's
as opposed to the four of us who don't get recognised but aren't loaded. Now, Gianni said this was the most successful club competition in the world. We respect everyone's opinion. It has been successful. We've had over 2.5 million in the stadium. That's around 40,000 spectators per match. No league in the world with that number except the Premier League, which of course has home teams, and these are neutral stadiums. I mean, another way of reading it is that there were over 1 million empty seats across the competition, so you choose the way you want to dress up these stats. We heard financially it would not work, but I can say we generated over $2 billion in revenue with the competition. We earned an average of $33 million a match. There is no other cup competition in the world that comes close to $33 million per match. There was me thinking the Zenith Data Systems did. It's already the most successful club competition in the world with all different measurements.
Like, okay, I understand the concept of PR, right? We all work in the media. You understand the idea of, stuff being put a positive spin on. We got used to that in the 1990s. I think that was sort of when that came in. But everything has to be like, this is the greatest thing ever that you've ever seen. This is absolutely... After Qatar 2022, which in football-wise was a good World Cup. It wasn't always a good World Cup. Some bits were quite bad, but it ended up a good World Cup. We've held the greatest ever. This has been the greatest ever. And every time they come up with this stuff of, this has been the greatest thing you've ever seen, we're doing this. And the thing is, you can see Infantino doing this, and then you could almost have this, suddenly you could transform and you could hear Donald Trump saying it. Because it is all that Trumpist, we're doing a great job, everything we're doing is possible, we're doing, it is just, and there is only one for it, bullshit. And it drives me insane.
Yeah, you're listening to the greatest podcast in the world, Guardian Football Weekly, and we'll be back in a second to look back at England's victory over Wales. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. It's England 6, Wales 1. Robyn, a lot of people played up the local derby element of this game and England not taking this for granted. And I guess England didn't take it for granted. It was very straightforward.
Very straightforward. And I think actually Susie said this on, I think maybe the women's Guardian Women's Football Weekly, that Wales and England, that it's a chasm. It's a chasm, and it's, respectfully, it's through no fault of the players, but they are so early on in their development as a nation, Wales. And they were exposed yesterday by England, who've the last probably since 2015 or so, have been very successful. And since Sarina Wiegman has come in and demanded the best for them, the best facilities, and Wales haven't had that. Yeah, it would have been a total shock, disaster if Wales had got anything in this. They were very limited. Great for them that they got the goal in front of the red wall, but England were totally dominant. They didn't really have to get out of first, second gear, and everything's looking very, very good actually. That France game feels like a very long time ago. We had 6 different goal scorers yesterday for England. We had Aggie Beever-Jones coming off the bench, providing an assist and a goal. Russo, Beth Mead off the mark, Lauren Hemp as well. And what was great was that because they were 4-0 up at half-time, Sarina Wiegman could take a couple of players off and start substituting the team, because I think she's now got her starting 11 sorted. And so going forward, it's all very positive, but albeit a pretty tough quarter-final coming up. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The balance of the side looks so much better. It's interesting. Would you say she's chanced upon this starting 11, or look, because the preparation hasn't been amazing, but it does really look like, okay, you swap Carter and Greenwood, right? That's sort of quite interesting that you do that mid-tournament. That's a strange thing to do, but it seems to work. Granted, given the opposition they had yesterday, moving James out wide, that looks like it works. It looks like just
do this in the France game. But I mean, it doesn't matter. But it's great that she has found this. Right?
Yeah, I don't think it's chance. I think Sarina Wiegman, they've never lost consecutive games under her, England. So it just shows that when they do get things wrong, when she perhaps makes a bit of a misstep, she corrects it. It's really worked. Ella Toone coming in, she's now having a really great tournament. She's got a couple of goals, got an assist yesterday. She had an 100% pass completion rate in the first half.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible. And yeah, it's all looking very good. That down that right side in particular against Wales, it was Lucy Bronze, Ella Toone and Rhys James. They just couldn't handle them, these kind of little intricate passes. Ella Toone and Beth Mead have both lost parents pretty recently. This is the first tournament where they haven't been there, their biggest supporters, and they've both spoken very movingly about it. And so Beth Mead scored her first goal of the tournament and spoke about her mum, June, who died. And it's just, but they seem like a really tight-knit group. Beth Mead is kind of a bit unfortunate that she's been the one who's been sort of dropped really through no fault of her own. I mean, she wasn't like the weak link against France, but the team now has more balance. With Ella Toone's industry and Rhys James now out wide, she had another great game. I mean, I've played against those sort of players that, and you just want to kick them because they're so annoyingly good.
Yeah.
But they try and kick, you can't even get near her. It's so frustrating. Just so pleased she's on our side, really.
Yeah, and that is interesting, Dan, isn't it? That Rhys James has that kind of, she is doing it at her own pace. So sort of when it doesn't work in the France game, it's quite easy to sort of, and obviously she hadn't played for a long time, to sort of pinpoint that as the problem. But when it works, it's a bit like talking about Cole Palmer. Like it's just somebody who is just sort of different.
Yeah, so someone that sees the game differently and plays the game differently. I'm not a great double screen watcher when I'm trying to watch two things at the same time, but I had the England game on my iPad, and every time I looked over, it was Rhys James that was doing something. I think sometimes she doesn't get the credit for some of the finesse that she possesses as one of the goals where she kind of flicked the ball through. I don't feel like when people talk about it, they don't talk about that side of a game. She's just a lovely, unique footballer to watch and was involved in everything good that England did, particularly in that first half, I thought. And if England are to progress and go far, she will be the most important player because, like we've kind of just alluded to, I think she's the most different and unique player that England possess, and I think that's what makes her special. And
in classic England major tournament mode, John, finishing second is good, and we're on the good side of the draw. You heard this before?
Well, lucky managers, isn't it? I mean, Gareth Southgate was always good at the getting through the draw somehow, that you had to face a relatively easy opponent. But you can't say, as Robyn says, you can't say Sarina Wiegman is a lucky manager. She's just a great manager. And the thing is about after that France game, that there was a panic, wasn't it? There was a panic about that. And a panic, I think, among broadcasters, among the media, because it's like if England crash out of this thing early, we wonder about the health of this tournament in this country, I should say. And despite Uncle Gianni's best efforts, we will get to watch, thankfully, the Lionesses without men's football going all over the top of it, which is great. I watched more of the second game than I did of this game. The Netherlands, they seem to have dropped off a hell of a lot since I recall them back in 2019 in particular. And by the sounds of the tournament, as compared to the Club World Cup, it's in those 30,000 stadiums, isn't it? It sounds great. It looks good. It sounds like it's a great atmosphere there. Everyone's enjoying it. Hopefully that tournament is a success and it is going to be able to step out into the four that it deserves and should have had in the first place, if you ask me.
The lack of Donald Trump celebrating probably took away
well, you never know. He could just take...
Parachuting.
Were you scared, Robyn? I mean, after that France game, I really thought, oh, wow, these guys look hopeless.
Oh, yeah. No, we really were, all of us. We were in the press room ahead of the Netherlands game. We really didn't know, because we saw Netherlands dispatch Wales fairly easily. But that's the thing. I think that we're still a little bit not concerned, but, England have chucked in a really bad performance at this tournament. Sweden haven't, who they face next. Actually, the Netherlands is really interesting, because yesterday they had to beat France by 3 goals. So difficult. They were winning 2-1.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, they were playing really well, but because they had to keep, they had to score more, they were left very exposed. I haven't seen the fallout, but he kept Vivian Miedema on the bench the whole game. Now, I don't know if that was because she was injured, but that is going to cause a meltdown. And I'm sure you're aware that the Netherlands manager was told, you're not staying on after this.
Yeah, and the England assistant's going there, yeah.
Yeah, Sarina's assistant is going there. I'm just thinking that's not conducive probably to a great atmosphere. He was very pissed off by that. By all accounts, he was like, well, why should I even do this tournament? I think he kind of was thinking about not bothering. Just a very odd situation for them. And it was a difficult group. Obviously, France, England, and Netherlands would usually all think they're going to get to the knockout stages. It's the Netherlands who are not going to make it. So yeah, just very odd situation for the Dutch.
Yeah. Would be the first time there'd ever been a bad atmosphere in a Dutch squad during a major tournament.
I was going to say, they really do these things in style, don't they?
They really do. Talk to us about Sweden, Robyn. They had a great result against Germany. Because once people who probably don't follow the women's game, every minute of the day, hear, easy side of the draw, they then just go, okay, well, it's England's guaranteed path to the final to probably lose to Spain.
Yes. Well, it's easy in the sense that we're really getting ahead of ourselves. It's an easier semi-final, potentially.
Right.
But I think a more difficult quarter-final. So it would have been Germany, who I think maybe England against Germany has a different vibe, but they have not been very good this tournament. Literally giving Sweden a helping hand. I don't know if you saw the handball and the red card for the Germany player. It was literally like a really good goalkeeper reflex save. So she was sent off and Sweden kind of ran riot. But Sweden, in terms of women's football, they have a fantastic history. They're always there or thereabouts. They keep kind of falling just short. They've got a lot of bronze medals from the World Cup and the Olympics and things like that. So
the Peter Elliott of,
exactly. But they've got a really good coach, Peter Gerhardsson. He's got, John, you'd love him. He's well into his music. He's always talking about, he likes to play sort of music from the opposition, sort of famous. Well, anyway, but I'll leave that to you.
As I say, that was some terrible music chat, Robyn.
I'll leave it to you.
Very vague music chat with Robyn Can. Whoever hosts Six Music Breakfast is shitting bricks right now, Robyn. I tell you,
Robyn, I'll write a treatment. We can do this. We can
John,
make money of this.
We'll finesse it. He's a really good coach. They like him. England beat Sweden heavily at the previous Euros in the semi-finals 4-0. That was the Russo back heel. A lot of players that they play against, Blackstenius is there, a lot of WSL players. They're very well coached. This is the harder quarter-final. It means you miss the Spain semi-final, but let's hold the horses a little bit first.
Am I right in saying Blackstenius is, because I did the column for Yonas Odal, we were chatting about him. Obviously, Blackstenius is a great presser of the ball, so that's he said that's her strength, that she is always there waiting, and obviously we know how good she is for Arsenal, but my limited knowledge, I thought Sweden doesn't look that promising a draw, really, as you say. I mean, we're seeing the Lionesses post-success, aren't we? And that's the difficult part for so many teams, is to repeat that. And as you've said, that there are players who've had life changes that have gone on since then, and it's never that easy to repeat that success and repeat that feeling. And if they manage to do it, it will be an unbelievable success, really, wouldn't it?
I think so, yeah, because you can't just go on an upward curve the whole time. And to reach, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Apart from this podcast,
obviously,
the greatest podcast in the world. Yeah.
But, they won the Euros.
Or Donald Trump,
they got to the World Cup final. If they get to another final, it's ridiculous, really, because it's not the same squad as well. It's very, very different from the last Euros in particular. So, yeah, as I say, I think the Sweden game, I think England have better players and more depth on paper. But as I say, that France game is still just a bit of a niggle. And, if that happens again, Sweden will take advantage. France
were really good. Certainly that second half when they beat the Netherlands 5-2. Delphine Cascarino is some player. Got a better touch than her dad, Tony. That is for sure.
It's a shame she didn't play for Republic of Ireland, isn't it?
Exactly. So the quarterfinals are Norway, Italy, Sweden, England. The winners of those two will meet. And then Spain, Switzerland, France, Germany. So I mean, I guess, Robyn, you're expecting a France-Spain semi-final, which would be sort of box office. This should be the final, inverted commas, type game. And then you think the semi-final, whoever progresses between England and Sweden would be expected to make the final in a game against Norway.
Yeah, definitely. Norway have been so strange. They've not played well, and they find themselves where they are, and they've got a very favourable draw against Italy. Although I did Italy's game against Spain, and they played very well. They couldn't last the 90 minutes, but they were kind of very typical Italy, sort of very good defensively. Scored a good goal on the counter. They were creating chances from set pieces and sort of breaking this very high Spain line, so they can be got at. But my favourite bit was the club doctor coming on in full suit, the Italian club doctor.
Lovely.
And I was just thought, yeah, that's brilliant. That is absolutely sensational. That not a tracksuit in sight on that Italian bench. It's all suits.
Guardian Women's Football Weekly is 3 times a week, and we're actually going to have the rest of this week off, so we're going to put some of their pods into our feed, so listen to them and then subscribe to Guardian Women's Football Weekly wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Let's start talking about Liverpool's first game back in pre-season at Deepdale, where they played Preston North End. First game since the tragic death of Diogo Jota and his brother. And I don't know if you've seen or like heard some of the when they played You'll Never Walk Alone. Actually, me and Barry were on the radio, and we crossed there and we just let them play it. And I can't remember who the singer was, but she did an amazing job. And it sounded, even without the pictures, it was incredibly moving. And it's just one of those moments, John, where because of how quickly the news cycle goes, and even in football, it's not you forget that something has happened, but you just move on and you're thinking about the next thing and the next thing. And it just felt so, and this won't obviously be the last time that, Liverpool commemorate his life, but I just found it incredibly moving. And just like a salient reminder of, this is still so raw, and obviously for his family and his family and his friends and his wife and his kids, but for the Liverpool team as well, just how raw this is.
Yeah, I mean, it happened only last Thursday, and as I'm sure we all know, part of the grieving process doesn't happen that quickly, does it? And of course, Preston, a very fitting club for Liverpool to play because of the connection with Bill Shankly. As you say, we will see this again at the start of the season. I'm sure come the end of next season, Diogo Jota will not be forgotten. It's such a strange situation. I can't remember this being repeated, in English football. I know it has. Jose Mourinho talks about how he lost a player when he was back at Benfica many years ago with Bobby Robson. But it's so difficult to carry these things off. Liverpool have to. It's Preston did the job properly, as you'd expect, and it's one of the great clubs of English football of a different era, and it was very, very well. It brought it back to you, didn't it? That he is not long gone, and for his teammates, that's going to be very, very difficult. And it's clear that it continues to hang over them, as it will do, I think, for a long time. As we all know, well, we've discussed it before on the pod. Grief is one of those things that comes and goes, and you have to live with eventually. You have to accept it as part of your makeup. And I think it's going to be part of Liverpool's makeup for some time to come.
There's an amazing image down of Ben Whiteman, the Preston captain, just going on his own and laying a wreath there and standing in front of the Liverpool fans. And as John said, this was about Liverpool, but Preston did an amazing job, actually, I think.
Yeah, like John says, Preston are a classy club, a traditional club. I expected them to handle it well, and I think they handled it as well as you could do of something of this circumstance. And same as John, I don't remember anything like this ever happening since I've watched football. Such a prominent current footballer playing for one of the greatest clubs in the world, passing in such a tragic manner. And I find it difficult to talk about it and try and comprehend what people will be going through, particularly those Liverpool players, because they're coming back to pre-season expecting to, this band of brothers that have just won the league, they're expecting to see their mate, someone who sounds like he was an absolutely massive and huge part of that Liverpool dressing room, a very, very popular player. And we're used to players coming and going in football, and I think a couple of Liverpool personnel have alluded to that. But to lose someone in that way, someone that you definitely would have expected to be spending the whole season with, I think that's really, really hard. And John's right, grief does hit you at different times. You go through the different periods of grief that come with loss like this. But I think it's going to be really, really tough for Liverpool, a club that, is lots of tragedy has happened to Liverpool, and unfortunately, as a club, and the fan base, unfortunately, are used to having tragedies happen to them. But I just think there's going to be times this season where they'll want to celebrate him, and there's going to be times this season where they're going to find it really, really, really difficult, and they're going to feel that loss.
Yeah, Arne Slot said, if we want to laugh, we laugh. If we want to cry, we're going to cry. If they want to train, they can train. If they don't want to train, they cannot train. But be yourself. Don't think you have to be different than your emotions tell you. We will always carry him with us in our hearts, in our thoughts, wherever we go. I think, Robyn, he just has actually shown like real statesman-like, whatever the right word is, just incredible emotional intelligence, the way he's spoken, and what an incredibly difficult job that he has to do. And I guess, players are different, right? For some players, football will be, even though they're that good at it, what football is for most of us who clog around a pitch, it'll be this amazing escape where they don't have to think about, and they can, and so playing might be perfect for some of these players, and not playing, and playing might be really difficult for other ones, and having to manage all of that will be incredibly difficult.
He seems like the perfect person to do that, though. When I read those quotes, it kind of blew me away, actually. I was thinking, wow, this guy gets it. I'm very fortunate I've not lost anyone sort of prematurely that I've been really, really close to. It's almost, I think, as a sort of society, we're quite uncomfortable, aren't we, talking about death and grief. And the way he summed that up, that it's okay, and saying Diogo Jota was himself the whole time, no matter what happened on and off the pitch. He just said, we should lead by his example. Do what you need to do. You're allowed to laugh. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to say you're not up to this today. I think that's right. We need to kind of be sensitive to the players' needs. I'm sure it's not just him. They probably knew his family as well. They would have known his wife, his children. I think we can't underestimate the impact this is going to have, and it's probably going to, as Dan said, this is going to have a huge impact for the rest of the season and beyond, isn't it? Because it's such a tragedy and a shock to the system that it's not something you get over. It's going to be something that lives with them for the rest of their lives. And, people are going to try and analyse, I guess, their performances on the pitch and the sort of impact it has. It's just kind of a bit pointless, really, isn't it?
I mean, that sort of comes back in it. It's a very stark example, and one that we all know, but a stark example of whenever we're analysing footballers and how well they're playing and whether they had a good game or whether they did this or did that. It is an acknowledgement that it's always at a kind of superficial level, however deep we want to think we are, because we just don't know about every individual's feelings at any given moment. And you can't always caveat that. Like, as the season goes on, you can't caveat every Liverpool game with they might have been feeling sad about this, or his Portuguese teammates who are playing, or just anyone else who's been touched by that tragedy. Liverpool have announced they're retiring the number 20 shirt, which is one of a number of amazing gestures that club has done and have continued to do. Elsewhere, Crystal Palace have been demoted from the Europa League to the Europa Conference League. Steve Parish has said they'll appeal. John Textor's involvement with Palace and French side Lyon was deemed to have breached UEFA's multi-club ownership rules, which state clubs with the same ownership group cannot play in the same competition. Any conflicts of interest for next season had to be sorted by the 1st of March. Steve Parish said on Sky Sports, there's a real crossroads here for UEFA to look at. Do they intervene and do the right thing, which is what I think they should do, which is what I think they want to do, or do they let this process play out and see probably one of the greatest injustices that's ever happened in European football? He said in the same interview, remarkably, UEFA were emailing the general address, info@cpfc.co.uk, about the rule change in January, and that wasn't picked up. Producer Joel says, I can sympathise as Football Weekly at theguardian.com gets sent all sorts of crap, as well as brilliant listener emails. It is fascinating, John, isn't it? And I am left thinking, I spoke to Kevin Day yesterday, a big Palace fan, host of the Price of Football podcast. And I think if I was a Palace fan, I'd think, you know what, if this was a bigger club, And I don't have any evidence for this, but if I was a Palace fan, I'd be thinking, they're sticking to the rules because it's us. And I know every football, fan thinks that it's their club and there's an agenda, etc. But I would just be left feeling that as a Palace fan. I bet they'd have found a way to let Man United in.
Yeah, the Crystal Palace haven't been in the UEFA camp before, have they? In those, the special, members club, and this is their first time. This thing about the email address is interesting. That there's a few people have pointed out that they have actually in official documentation used this email address as well. So
right, okay.
So they're kicking it, but at this point, everyone has their own agenda about something like this, don't they? Because they might be coming from the point of view that their club is under attack for its own, malfeasance with UEFA or whatever. I think one of the things about Crystal Palace is that most people have sympathy for their plight. They don't think that they have sympathy for the fans, right? Unless you're from Brighton or whatever, because you think that you've got I suppose one thing is they've got the Conference League, and actually the Conference League would be winnable if you were Crystal Palace, if West Ham could win it or whatever. The Europa League might not be winnable, but it's the fact that the prestige is greater in the Europa League, the money is greater, the fact they might not be able to hold on to players like Eze if they drop into the Conference League, and that the drawbridge is being pulled away from them because of this practice of multi-club ownership that goes on across the game, and the biggest clubs in Europe have this thing going, but because they've dotted I's and crossed T's, they get away with it. And Palace will fight. Steve Parish is a very able administrator, is a very able politician within the football framework. It's probably not the last we've heard of it, but it's a shame because so often what goes on the pitch where you watch Crystal Palace that joyous day when they beat Manchester City, and yet it's someone on a laptop in a room in neon or whatever saying, actually, correction there. And, the legal... And who wins? The lawyers, always. So there we go.
Rules get broken in football all the time. Let's be brutally honest about it. Yes. Crystal Palace aren't the first club to break rules over the last 5 to 10 years. And to punish them in this way, when I actually think they've got a good chance of winning the Europa League as well. And then potentially that's Champions League football if they manage to win the Europa League. And to demote them at kind of a time when nearly half the Premier League is going to be in Europe next season, just let them play. Just let them stay where they are. This has got to be rectified. I think it's a real injustice, and I agree. I've got no proof, like Max, that if this was someone else, it wouldn't be getting handled in the same way.
Hello, Manchester City.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to pick anyone out, but yeah.
No, but we're still waiting, aren't we? We're still waiting.
Yeah, we are still waiting. The beneficiaries of these are prolific complainers Nottingham Forest, who are reportedly considering legal action over Tottenham's interest in midfielder Morgan Gibbs White. Forest are believed to be looking into whether a specific confidentiality agreement in the £60 million release clause in Gibbs White's contract has been breached. It feels odd to have a release clause, but not be allowed to tell anyone what it is. It's like, Morgan Gibbs White signs for Forest from Wolves, and he says, okay, yeah, I want this much a week, fine, well, I'd quite like a release clause, let's call it 60 minutes. He says, okay, look, we can have that, but you cannot tell anybody what it is. Like, what is it? Like, what is that? How is that? Surely a release clause is literally that. It's just like, if you want this guy, this is what you want. I understand. And like tapping up, clearly someone says, would you be interested in joining? Like, someone texts someone, otherwise what are they going to do? Like, I don't know. I
wasn't aware that you were allowed to have a secret release clause because...
No, me neither.
You think of over in Spain, you have... say Athletic Bilbao that do all their deals by release clause. It's like, this guy will cost you this much. You need to pay that money into this account.
Like a shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you're like buying something. As far as I'm aware, it is illegal to sell something without putting a price on it, isn't it? You can't just sort of go in and go... It's one of those things where, you mentioned Nottingham Forest, they do get involved in stuff like this a fair bit. I think that's probably where we should leave it because they get involved in stuff like this a fair bit. Yeah. It's to do with the fact that Gibbs White is such a franchise player, for want of a better phrase, for them. The thought of losing him would, because Forest are in Europe, of course, next season, and they would lose a player like that. This whole idea that, okay, well, you bid this much and somehow trigger this and that he's got to go, but then you can't trigger it because you weren't supposed to know. What?
What happens if Tottenham bid 75 million then? Would they just say, okay, that's fine, and no one ever knows about this clause?
But what do you do? Do you ring them up and say, does Morgan Gibbs White have a release clause? And they say, I'm not telling you. And then you go, okay, I bid £1. And it's not like Championship Manager where you only had 3 goes. You bid, $1 million, 2 million, 3 million. No. And that was it. That was your chance. You could just go £2, £3, and eventually they'll go, okay,
yeah.
I don't know. And look, I'm not objective.
Didn't Arsenal do it with Suarez?
Yeah.
They bid £1 over a release clause.
Yeah.
But again, I think in that case, Dan, they weren't supposed to know either.
Yeah.
So obviously this isn't the first time that's happened. And the inference is, I suppose, that some other operator, presumably an agent, has let it slip that this is what it'll cost you to get my boy to your club, and that's where this is the illegal tapping up thing. Now, all of us will know that certain players arrive at a club, and it's not the first time they've spoken to that club when they arrive on that day. What's that footage of? I think it's Patrick Vieira arrives at Manchester City, and Gary Cook, hey brother, and all this. It's like, well, you two aren't really supposed to know each other or whatever. It's one of those things of where we all know it goes on, but we're not quite at the service stations and brown envelopes of days gone by. It's the transfer business. Players are up for sale. Gibbs White is a player that was linked with Manchester City earlier on in the transfer window. Is linked with other clubs. Tottenham put in a bid. There you go.
I do quite admire Forest's kind of siege mentality in a way with all these issues. Like we've said, they are serial complainers, but essentially they've messed up because they've put a release clause in the contract that is probably undervaluing their asset. I know from experience that when Villa sold Jack Grealish to Manchester City for 100 million, when they put that 100 million clause in the contract, they didn't think anyone was ever going to pay that, and Manchester City did. Forest essentially have undervalued an asset, and my feeling with this is that they'll speak to each other, Tottenham and Forest, and they'll resolve it, and maybe Tottenham will have to pay a little bit more than 60 million, and then Forest will be happy. But Forest on this occasion, like I say, there's elements of it I admire, but it's kind of their mistake.
Yeah, I like the idea that, all players in their first interview have to appear completely shocked that this is where they've turned up. I had absolutely no idea until a minute ago. And suddenly,
like we haven't met before.
I suddenly found myself in North London. I didn't know where I was going. They put a blindfold on me, and here I am. Victor Gyökeres is trying to force a move to Arsenal. He's not training with Sporting at the moment. What have you made of Villa's transfer business so far? Has there been any, Dan?
Well, yeah, I've not made much of it because nothing's really happened. So it's probably the shortest segment on a podcast ever. I don't think Villa are going to be particularly active. I think obviously not qualifying for the Champions League and the financial rules has hindered them a little bit. They haven't sold that kind of big player that we were expecting yet, but I do feel that to be able to reshape the squad and be able to make multiple signings, they will have to sell someone. Who that is, I don't know. But probably the biggest thing to come off the back of the transfer window so far is that they won't be buying Marco Asensio, who I think everyone expected them to buy, because now they're in the Europa League, not the Champions League, and we've got all these rules. Essentially, we can't afford his wages and can't justify his wages. So, been a quiet summer so far.
Andy Carroll will play 6th-tier football next season after signing for National League side Dagenham and Redbridge on a free transfer. He's reportedly taken a minority stake in the club as part of a Qatari-led takeover.
Have you ever been down there to the Daggers?
I've never been to the Daggers, but interesting that you know.
I have.
Okay.
I have a couple of times.
Tell me more.
Well, I live in East London, and it's still a long way away. It is a long way out of East London.
Proper Essex.
Yeah, and my memory is I've got to see Macclesfield play there. Is that the main, back in those days, and this would be, say, 10, 15 years ago, the main sponsor was a funeral directors. And I remember the advert said, the oldest business in Dagenham. And I thought, yeah, that's probably right. Yeah.
Anyway, well, look, good luck to Andy Carroll. We're as I said, we're taking 2 off. Baz is traipsing around Nova Scotia A bit like Alone. He's like that. He's doing the reality show Alone, where he has to find and kill a moose to eat it to survive. I am going to get over PTSD of taking 2 small children on a 24-hour flight. Pray for me, Robyn. Pray for me.
I'm sending you so good vibes, and the fewest arched backs and sick episodes.
Oh God!
Are you coming to see Oasis, Max? Is that why you're flying over?
Yeah. I'm just flying. I'm just for the gig and then back again. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Robyn.
Thank you, Max.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, Max.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Phil Maynard.
This is The Guardian.